What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Aircraft Maintenance Engineering Cars Examination Practice Questions. For you guys that are new to my channel, my name is Peter. I am a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, and I help aircraft maintenance engineer apprentices to pass that cars examination 80% and above. So if you're an aircraft maintenance engineer apprentice that need help with your cars examination, click the link in the description and let me see how I can help you out. All right. So imagine if you get a question like this that says, the time from the moment an aircraft leaves the surface until it comes into the contact with the surface at the next point of landing is called A, you have options flight time, B, you have option A, air time, C, you have option takeoff and landing, D, you have option flight cycle. First, let's look at each option and understand what each option stands for, right? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is flight time. Right? Let's understand the definition of flight time. So what is flight time? Flight time is when an aircraft moves under its own power. So basically, there is no type of external force, right? I'll give you guys a quick example. So imagine an aircraft is on the ramp, right? It's on the gate, it's at the gate, and it's about to push back, right? The pushback requires an external force. So it requires the tow truck to push the aircraft backwards, right? So the aircraft is being pushed on the apron, right? So now the aircraft is on the apron, there is no more external force, right? As soon as the pilot pull the throttle, right? Start moving the throttle, and the aircraft start moving, right? So now the aircraft is moving under its own power. There is no type of external force. That is flight time. So from the moment the aircraft start moving under its own power, right, until it stops. Right? So until the pilots put the parking brakes up, that is flight time. Right? So for air time, on the other hand, air time is when an aircraft leaves the surface until it gets back on the surface in the next destination. So we're going to use an airplane for example, right? Let's say, for example, the 737, it's on the taxiway, right? And it gets to the runway, right? The pilot is about to take off. It gets clearance from ATC. ATC, I'm about to take off, clear to take off. As soon as the pilot puts full throttle, takeoff power, boom, the aircraft is moving. As soon as the pilot put the yoke, right, to take off, right? As soon as the aircraft, the wheels, the main landing gear wheels, leaves the surface of the runway, that is air time. So leaves the surface. And as soon as it gets back, touch the surface, right? So the aircraft leaves the surface and touch the surface. That's a calculation of air time. And for air time, you can actually use air time. As for Transport Canada, as per the regulation, whenever they're calculating the maintenance activities, right, for tech record, they use air time to calculate maintenance activities, right? So maintenance activities use air time. Guys, I'm sorry, my handwriting is not the best, but yeah. And the reason why they use air time to calculate maintenance activities, right? I'll give you guys two reasons. The first one is because I'll use an airplane for example, right? Let's say it's 737, right? When an airplane is on the air, is on the ground, right? There's a lot of component that does not experience the full aerodynamic effect, right? let's say for example, the wings, for example, when you're on the ground, there's no aerodynamic effect. So right, you cannot really, and some inspections requires you to experience. So there's something they call maintenance schedule. I'm sorry guys that I'm jumping all over, right? There's something they call maintenance schedule, right? A maintenance schedule, right? A maintenance schedule is it's a schedule that is given by the manufacturer of a specific aircraft. So let's say for the 787, it's a Boeing aircraft. So Boeing will come like, okay, let's say every 25 flight hours, 25, let's say every 25 flight hours, inspect the fuel tank, let's say inspect the fuel pump, right? So the Boeing tells the operator, right, hey, every 25 flight hours, inspect this fuel pump. Let's imagine the 25 flight hours takes 2 months. And this is an aircraft that does not fly that much. So let's say it takes 2 months, right? On the ground, yes, you need fuel for ignition, right? But you're not getting the full aerodynamic effect on the ground. You're not really gonna experience that many faults or any type of stress on the ground, right? You experience the full thing in the air, and that is why Transport Canada usually recommend the calculation of air time, the calculation of maintenance activities with air time. So as soon as the aircraft leaves the surface, now there is more aerodynamic effect on the aircraft, right? In terms of vibration, right? Because the fuel pump, the bolt that holds the fuel pump, right? You cannot. There's more vibration on the engine, right? That could lead to like one of the bolts getting stressed out, right? That is why they use aircraft air time to calculate maintenance activities, because aircraft experience the full aerodynamic effect when it's on the air, when it's in the air. Another reason is it saves companies money, to save money. So another reason why they use air time to calculate maintenance activities is because, let's say for example, I said a 25 hours flight hours, right? Boeing is like, okay, inspect this fuel pump every 25 hours, flight hours. Let's imagine an aircraft that does not fly that many times. The 25 flight hours is going to take us 2 months, a calculation of 2 months, right? But now, let's imagine we use the flight time to calculate maintenance activities, right? For this fuel pump, right? Like I told you guys, a flight time is when an aircraft moves on its own power. So basically from taxiing, as soon as the aircraft start moving, so basically from taxiing, that's a calculation of flight time. So let's imagine we have external factors like delays, we have de-icing, we have the ATC tells us to stop, right? A 25 cycle taxiing, let's imagine taxiing will take us 45 minutes. Think of it. For every flight hours, we are taxiing for 45 minutes. An inspection that is meant to take us 2 months will now take us at least minimum 30 days. And that's not good for companies. They're not saving money. They're not going to save money doing inspection every 30 days. Because a flight time, you can have external factors. You can have delay, you can have de-icing, you can have maybe an emergency landing from another aircraft that can cause the aircraft to stop on the taxiway. That is why they don't use flight time to calculate maintenance activities. They use air time, because air time, you don't have no type of external factor that can affect you flying, right? And the last two options we have takeoff. I think takeoff is pretty. You can pretty understand that option, right? So takeoff is when an aircraft basically takes off, takes off and land. That's takeoff and land, right? The last option is flight cycle. What do they mean by flight cycle? Flight cycle. So imagine an aircraft, let's say 787, is scheduled to leave Toronto to Montreal. So from Toronto to Montreal, that is one cycle. So let's now imagine the aircraft is flying from Toronto, so YYZ to YUL, and is scheduled to move from YUL to YVR, so Vancouver, right? From YYZ to YUL, that's one cycle. From YUL to YVR, that's one cycle. So now you have 2 cycles, right? And the question we had was the time from the moment an aircraft leaves the surface, the keyword, leave the surface, until it comes in contact with the surface. From what I have explained, you know the right answer is air time. Air time. So the right answer is air time. And that is because air time, one more time, air time is when an aircraft leaves the surface and comes in contact with the surface. Flight time is when an aircraft moves under its own power. So basically from taxiing, the aircraft is moving under its own power. That is flight time until it comes to the stop. Flight cycle is how many cycles the aircraft moves. So basically from one destination to another. So the aircraft moved from Toronto to Montreal, that's 1 cycle. From Montreal to Vancouver, that's 2 cycles. Hopefully you guys understand, all right? Like I said, my name is Peter. I'm a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, and I help aircraft maintenance engineer apprentices to pass their CARS examination 80% and above. So if you're an apprentice that need help with your CARS examination, you need someone to guide you through, you need someone to show you the right way, the right steps, click the link in the description and book a consultation, and let me see how I can help you, all right? For you guys that are new to my channel, my name is Peter. I'm a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer. If you like my videos, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Love you guys.